tayo dito.
But we do not directly work with each other.
Ma'am, na-connect ko na po siya sa YouTube.
Okay po, sir. Pengi na lang po ako ng embed link sa GC na lang.
Sige, ma'am.
Share ko na po yung slides para pag nag-live tayo, game na.
Ma'am, nakamute po kayo.
Hello, everyone. Before we officially begin the program proper for today's session, I am inviting everybody at this point to join me in prayer and afterwards, the singing of the Philippine National Anthem. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, God of the universe, Lord of all time and space, you are the Spirit and love and true connectivity, originator of emerging technologies and ever evolving intelligences. You have given us both gift and challenge. Help us choose wisely amid the endless tweets and data streams that daily saturate our consciousness. Immerse us in the power of your providence. Let it always be well of wisdom from which we can draw meaning. Bless us again this day, all our tools of technology, which await your power and our human efforts as educators. Grant wisdom, understanding, and a clear sense of stewardship to us. Guide our hands, guide our clicks, that we may be your faithful servant with every key we press. Enable our humble efforts as we talk this information superhighway to bring glory to your name and the blessings to your people everywhere, the life giving energy of your spirit. Bless our heart with endless patience whenever needed. We pray for those who feel challenged in the face of technological change. Lord, we pray that technology may be the servant, not the controller of our lives. We lift this prayer through the power of your word and the life giving energy of your spirit. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good afternoon to all our colleagues in the university, and it is indeed great to welcome everybody to the second segment of Tiger, Teaching and Innovation Goals for E-Learning Redesign. Again, the Tiger faculty training was made possible by the efforts of the Office of the Vice Rector of Academic Affairs in collaboration with the Center for Innovative Teaching and Educational Delivery, or CITED, and the Educational Technology Center, EdTech. I am Jennifer S. Aguilar from the College of Fine Arts and Design, your session moderator for this afternoon. And together with me are my partners and chat moderators, Ms. Catherine Joy Esquadra and Assistant Professor Charmaine S. Juanay. Yesterday, we revisited our experiences in the first term with the Vice Rector for Academic Affairs, Professor Cheryl R. Peralta, DRPH, when we implemented EVM, or Enriched Virtual Mode of Instruction, rooted in the principles of communion and encounter that promotes dialogues and ensures accessibility and flexibility in learning. We also tackled how we actually adopted with the EVM framework from the Education Quality International, aligning the Tomasian core values, attributes, and program outcomes through the learning design, support services, technology, and infrastructure of the university. And I quote what was mentioned yesterday, that we then realize that we are all different in the readiness and progression in our response to changing landscape of education. And this was true enough when cited Officer in Charge Associate Professor Andres Julio Santiago Jr., LPT, PhD, shared his personal experiences in innovative teaching and educational delivery through EDM. Today, as we begin our day two, we now rethink the options available to us, reconsider the choices we have made, and reflect how we actually maximize the learned principles of pedagogy and benefits of the provided technology to all of us. My browser actually tells me that we are about 994 attendees with 17 panelists, to be exact, from my browser participants in this Zoom meeting. So may I remind everyone that if you have any questions to our speakers later on, our chat moderators are on standby to officially transcribe them to be tackled later on during the open forum and the Q&A portion. When typing in your questions though, please indicate for speaker, then indicate the surname of the speaker, and then type in your questions so that it will be easier to be addressed accordingly. Now, may we please call our first speaker for today. Our first speaker for today is the director of the UST Educational Technology Center, Assistant Professor Ana Cheryl M. Ramos, MSc. Ma'am,
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes po.
yes, ma'am.
So let me just share my slides with you. Is it appearing on your end now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So again, good afternoon to our dear fellow Thomasian educators and administrators. I'm tasked today, this afternoon, as the title suggests, I'll be touching on a segment from a series of on-demand training programs we conduct at the EdTech Center, and we give this to academic units that need this topic for reinforcement. So we hope that at the end of this learning session, regardless of our subject area of specialization, we'll be able to have a wider perspective to rethink of what lies ahead, and most importantly, on how to redesign our current online courses in a way, in a right way, while shifting into fully online teaching. Now, since the title of my presentation has something to do with architecture, so it is, but of course, related to start with this quotation. So every well-built house started in the form of a definite purpose, plus a definite plan in the nature of a set of blueprints. And we must agree, all of us, that even before the pandemic, we already have shifted our education focus to make the learning experiences we design to be meaningful for the workplace. That is actually how we center our blueprint for when it comes to designing our instruction. So even then that we haven't experienced the pandemic at all. And so that is why here we see the demands from the industry of skills that can transcend beyond the classroom. So this is something that we work around for so long, something that the Vice Rector for Academic Affairs have been campaigning and being given now to the level of the academic units. And so we know that prior to pandemic, we are definite in redefining our educational focus, that our shift must be going towards learner-centric, outcomes-based education. So let me now just have a review because I think there are a lot of faculty members who might be new in the session. And so for the rest, it could just be a reinforcement, or probably you have heard this before. So here I'm just showing you um, the University of Santo Tomas graduate attributes, and we are aware of this. This was given yesterday by Mom Peralta. In this particular slide, we are looking into where we situate ourselves, especially if we are into our higher education, or if we are in the basic education. So we know exactly what skills should we be developing as in relation to what is the demand of the workplace. So here we know that in higher education, we are really in outcomes-based education. So at this point, let me now highlight this again. We believe that for the teaching and learning to be effective, all components must be aligned. So this is something that is being emphasized every now and then. So from that macro perspective, constructive or instructional alignment starts with the achievement and development of our graduate attributes that is actually unique to us being a Catholic university, but it has as well need to be relevant to what is being demanded in the workplace. And so these are all embedded in the program outcomes, as outcomes-based education is the national curricular approach for tertiary education. So next here is that we believe that this must be, of course, translated down below into our different programs, as I have mentioned. And what do we mean by this industry required competencies? So these are what we call transversal competencies that are said to be basic. They could be essential, and they could as well be cross-thematic and cross-curricular, that you can apply them with other set of skills so that you can thrive well in a real environment. Now, at the level of a certain course within the program, these program outcomes are further unpacked into specific subjects. And so this is something that we know already, and I'm just emphasizing a bit of this and giving us a brief background before I dive into my real topic. So here you're looking at already the micro view where we are already within our course. So in these programs, as I've said, are further unpacked into the specific subject. And of course, these subjects in the micro view shows the relationship between the intended learning outcomes, which focus on what students know and be able to do at the end of the course, to the learning activities, which lists the appropriate activities that your students achieve so that they'll be able to achieve the desired learning competencies, as well as our choice of assessment and feedback so that we are able to achieve the outcomes. In terms of that tangible output that is required of us, this course intended learning outcomes, the assessment, the TLAs are in fact listed in the blueprint, and we call that our course plan. Now, the next question that I would want to raise here is that given that we are in the pandemic, let's also ask ourselves, especially that we are already in the second term of being in a pandemic, is how ready am I to bring this level, to bring this in a different level, particularly if we are in a fully online environment. So I cannot help but discuss with you some of the online teaching competencies that must be there in the first place. And if not, then this is the best time. This training that we are conducting in the university is something that is needed by us. So even if I'm a seasoned faculty, and even if I'm like a junior faculty, then I need to somehow be able to fill in some of the gaps that I need to address. So as we have experienced since the start of the pandemic, no doubt the teaching with technology adds a different layer of that knowledge and expertise. And I think with this infographic, we are familiar with some of the domain expertise that are needed for me to survive in this whole new environment. So one must be well trained and prepared in these areas. So not only that I have a command of the subject matter in delivering this for the term in accordance with the graduate attributes, as well as the pillows and the silos. The teacher's content knowledge includes even curricular standards in its implementation, as well as in the evaluation and feedback and quality assurance. Second, I should also have a command in terms of my theoretical knowledge of, let's say, human behavior, human learning and development. And lastly, I should be well trained in terms of employing technical strategies that result in that meaningful learning experiences. The next C that I would want to highlight is what we call um, constructive alignment. There's a need for us to have what we call a deep and principled understanding of constructive alignment. And I've already talked about this just a while ago, and let me just highlight this one at a time. So you already know that before you even step into an online classroom to teach, you need to first set your curricular aims or learning intents so that you would know what your students will have to achieve, what standards or behaviors or performance level you would want to consider to be acceptable. You also need to know what learning episodes you would want to design. So here, you're talking of as well as these meaningful learning opportunities that you need to provide to the students for them to be able to develop the desired competency. And then you just don't throw here a list of activities. They must be well structured in terms of specific goals. So our teaching approach is the one we decide on which specific methods to use must be incongruent with the learning intent. So this is something that we are very much familiar with, but I just want to have a quick check. And lastly, here, our teaching approaches should always be anchored on learning intents, as I've mentioned, but the successful completion of the task must as well be um, aligned with how we assess. So, using a variety of assessment methods. So, without assessment, the learning remains dangling from the principles and not given a reality check. Another is that without assessment, we are wasting a lot of time in that they learn no important lesson from the experience because we don't have any gauge or feedback as to what's going on. And in the process, we also make sound educational decisions. So all in all, in the process of educational change, we will never complete without assessment. So I'm going to break this down further even more. So I'm going to focus now on learning intents. So it is worth to remember that the episodes that later on you will design should be anchored on your learning intents and to see to it that these episodes later on will not be, let's say, underestimate nor overshoot the learning intents. Because for one, you have limited time. Okay, so before I proceed further, so I want to highlight here that we have different levels of objective to start with. So let me just set this one at a time. So as I've mentioned before, we dive into specific lesson objectives. We must be very much familiar with first with the different objectives in our program. So we have a course goals that is listed in the rationale of your program. They are still essential to the learning process, but they are too general to serve as organizers for the specific lessons. The second aspect is that there are what we call general objectives. And they are stated, but they cannot be measured. It is really still be difficult. So that is why the third level of objective is what we call the instructional objective. So these are translated into the lessons that you have in your course. So whatever is the generality, objectives provide a framework and a guide for the teachers. And we already know that objectives may be defined and written in various forms. And that is actually why we have a lot of training centered around on objectives, because being an instructional designer for a long time, a lot of errors that have been committed um, in a finished course could actually be traced back to a poorly written instructional objectives. So here are some of the examples that we know for a lot of us, for most of us. So we know that an instructional objective is a written statement of that measurable learning that is intended to take place as a result of instruction. Here you will see some of the examples. So notice that the objectives are statements of anticipated effects of instruction and not merely a listing of activities. So they describe what students will be able to do, to feel, to think as a result of the instruction. So there's actually no magic formula for writing objectives, but when instructional objectives are clear, it is therefore possible to select now appropriate strategies to be able to bring about the learning desired. Um, Another is that when you have clear objectives, your evaluation process also becomes easier. So, a rule of thumb for writing a good objective is that the students must act on the material they are learning, and in doing so, connect the material in some way to something else. So, in this process of connecting, students go beyond mere memorization. So, your students learn by acting on and manipulating ideas. There are three basic types of learning objectives. For most of us, we focus on the first domain, which is the cognitive. So that focuses on the knowledge and intellectual skills. But there's also the second and the third one. You have the psychomotor, wherein the focus is of acquisition of skills, and you have the affective, which are your attitudes and feelings. So every instructional design needs to include both your cognitive and affective objectives. And psychomotor objectives are prevalent in courses that involve mastery of skills. Let's say physical education, laboratory classes, drawing class, or let's say in a music class wherein you need to play a musical instrument. Now, in the cognitive objectives, in the cognitive domain, we specify, of course, at this point, knowledge that students will retain as a result of the instruction. So at this point, we need to review that when we look at that knowledge, we are in fact being able to categorize them into four types. So Anderson and Krathwohl, so they are behind the Bloom's taxonomy. They identify four types of knowledge. So you may be teaching a factual knowledge in class. They refer only to knowing elements related to terms. You also have conceptual knowledge. This could be just a deeper understanding of the content. You might be teaching procedural knowledge of learning the how of things. Then you may as well be teaching metacognitive knowledge when students gain about their own thinking. Now we are of course familiar that the cognitive domain is also centered around the development of these skills in a certain hierarchy from something that is from lower level to something that is higher level. So there is interesting relationship that you can find in this infographic between memory and understanding and understanding and thinking. So generally, students will best remember those that they best understand, and they will understand it best when they think about it. So to be able to process information at higher levels, students must be able to be taught how to think and not merely what to think. So this is what is being emphasized in this particular infographic. So another that I would want to share with you, still in the cognitive domain, is that we can actually plot this together. So here, and be able to improve on just merely listing down the different verbs below it. We can as well add here and improve our understanding on asking different questions within the different cognitive levels. And even below that, we can be helped by specifying what specific activities that could in fact target the lower level to higher order thinking skills. And if we really take this seriously, I want to share with you this table that here showing that we can plot the two guides, the cognitive process they mentioned, the different levels, and the types of knowledge, so that we can make sure that we are able to situate our activities and assessment into the achievement of our objectives. Now, at this point, I'll focus now on the second type of objectives. So these are the affective domains. So seldom being discussed, but it is important. So so the affective domain describe the attitude, feelings, and dispositions that we want to develop from the students. So from the same group that developed the Bloom's taxonomy. So Cratwell, Bloom's, and Masha developed this classification in terms of 5 parts continuum. It forms as well as a hierarchy, saying that our feelings could be simple to something that is also more complex. And it ends with internalization, which means that as we immerse ourselves into the learning process, we became more than just being aware, we are later on being able to internalize it and later on control our behavior. So teachers should be able to write these objectives that describe attitudes and feelings because we want students to care about what we taught, and then to grow from that experience. And the last here is the psychomotor domain. So again, seldom being discussed in training programs, but it is important because we need to go beyond the cognitive level. Here, the focus is on manipulative and motor skills that learners are to master and should be able to do. I'm actually referring to our subjects that would require a lot of psychomotor skills development, like our laboratory, let's say learning how to hold a paintbrush, playing a piano, throwing a baseball, or operate a certain laboratory equipment. So all in part would require certain manipulative or cognitive skills. So similar to cognitive and affective domains, so try to look at this infographic showing that our psychomotor domain also goes in different layers. So starting from low level skills, something more concrete skills, to progressing as well to higher order psychomotor skills. So it is interesting to note here that we will tell that a student has already mastered the skill if they are able to adapt and be able to apply this in a real life situation. And that is already in the adaption. And then you also have the organization in this particular site. So I'm already done discussing learning intents, and I hope that that could somehow clear some of the dark clouds that we may probably have on learning intents. I hope I was able to help shed some light on that. And so, in summary, that aspect of my talk shows that one cannot play basketball, which is the psychomotor, without knowing the rules of the game, that is the cognitive, and your desire to be a player. So, the categories primarily serve to assure us that a variety of learning and a range of outcomes are considered in deciding what students will learn from our instruction that we design. So at this point, I'm already in my second aspect of the constructive alignment. So it talks about the learning episodes. So it is worthy to remember that learning episodes um, that you should design should be anchored on your learning intents. And see to it that these episodes, as I mentioned, are not underestimate or overshoot because you don't have any much time. Okay. So at this point in the, just go back a bit. In this particular slide, it is worthy to note that in the design of an e-learning course, there would be an involvement of a variety of different instructional methods that you are able to see on our slide. And at this point, if you still remember our rapid e-learning training, we've talked about the absorb type activities, and we are in fact referring to expositive methods. So we are familiar with, of course, our lecturing. We are familiar with our case studies, our work examples, and some demonstrations so that we can better deliver conceptual knowledge. The next slide here that I want to share is that um, how is it being delivered online? So here you're looking at, well, I could deliver it in a form of a document. It could be a PowerPoint presentation, but it could also be a standalone e-learning lesson with some of text, images, audio. Maybe you've done that in an animation tool or an interactive animation tool. Okay, next here, presentations could also be made by an expert. We can, in fact, allow our experts to come in and pre-record it or bring it into a live session, like a synchronous class. But it can also be a webinar, similar to what we are doing right now. So as you can see, we are doing this. We are doing a lot of this already. But it's important to know the trade-offs, especially when we make some decisions. As you can see from here, in this table, you will see the pros and cons of applying a certain method. So for example, if we uh, decide on doing a presentation, yes, it is quickly to develop, but there could be less interactivity unless you bring it, let's say, inside Panopto and insert formative quizzes in between before you proceed to the next video. So there are workarounds for the cons to make it work, in fact. So next here are what we call application methods. In our rapid e-learning training, we describe this as applied types of activities. So they involve the learners to be in a practical activities, which can range from something that is simple to something that is complex. So simple could be, let's say, a demonstration of a skill to something that later on they will do their own research or they will really perform a simulation. So it is helpful here to have our teachers to provide guidance and facilitate. So here you will see a shift in terms of your role as a teacher. So how does it look like when it is online? So that's a question again that we want to share with you, or the answer to that question that we want to share with you. So if it's a demonstration or practice method, you can probably design an interactive e-lesson with combination of animations and some operational simulation. It can also be a live virtual session because you will be doing the actual demonstration. Now for case studies, so let me just go back again for that. So this is the one that I was mentioning a while ago. So demonstration could be in the form of some combination of your animations and simulations. It could also be something that is virtual, like a live session. Now for case study, so you are able to develop here some cognitive skills in a specific domain, and then learners are able to apply this to a concrete situation. So there are a variety of formats that you can actually um, sh- uh, implement in an online class. So you will see here, I could make an e-learning lesson. I could even show here like a branch-based scenario. Well, there are tools that would actually allow students to make some choices, and then it will provide different results based on their choices. And then it could also be some sort of a tutored individual activities, so it could as well be performed by a group. So there's a variety of ways by which this could be done online. Okay, next, if we want to use role play to develop that interpersonal skills while at the same time able to apply behavioral related principles in a concrete situation, so we can as well um, look at different delivery formats online. We can have electronic simulations with branching scenarios. We can also have group activities that I already mentioned in the previous method. And last year, if it's some simulation and serious games, then we can make use of simulations like Labster. There are simulations that would integrate a mathematical model where students are actually able to manipulate some of the variables. So these things are somehow available in a third-party application, and that you link it now in your online course. Now for guided research, so this could take in the form of a discussion forum or a step-by-step procedure that you want to list down to your students so that they are guided. Sometimes there's a need for you to be there in a live video conference, but sometimes your let's say the students being a researcher could be well guided with just a step-by-step procedure. But once in a while, as an advisor, there's a need for you to be there and really have to have that guidance. Okay, and the last here, if we have some of what we call as project works, it is also somehow similar to the previous example to our research work, because most of the time our research work are also group work. So some of the strategies there could really be applied here. And lastly, if we have students that are in our um, on-the-job training, so our job aids could provide just-in-time knowledge. So this could be printed documents in the form of a checklist. It could be a technical glossaries, a manual, or manuals that we ask our students to bring along once they do that in the practice site. So just like what I've shared a while ago, there are pros and cons to the different application methods. So remember that there is passivity at some point. Sometimes it is time consuming. And as you can see, if you will allow a virtual classroom to coach to demonstrate a certain skill set, then you need to consider internet connection. And we are very well aware of that. And that is why in the third or fourth day of our session of this training, we focus on that as well. So here in this particular table, I'm showing the pros and cons as well of doing case-based scenarios. So again, being time consuming is something that is being considered when you apply case-based scenarios. So as well as in the role plays, which is especially true when it is really very student centric because you allow them to be immersed in the situation and you cannot really hurry it up. Okay, so here are some more. So you have the simulations and some of the pros and cons that are associated with it. And the last here that I would want to share in this instructional methods and our knowledge to refresh our memory would be the collaborative method. So these are just few of the examples. In a rapid e-learning training, we call this as connect type activities. So here are samples. So how do I do, let's say, an online discussion? Well, we are very much familiar with the discussion forum in Blackboard. can do email, you can do chats, you can do audio or video conference. Um, and as well as in collaborative work, this is very much could be done using, let's say, a Google collaborative document or a slide. And we are very much familiar with already because you have been trained in our cloud-based technologies. So here you will see peer tutoring. This could as well be done by the same delivery formats. Of course, there are different workarounds, even more, but we don't have even more the time. Okay, just like what I've shown a while ago, you have pros and cons when it comes to applying this types of methods in the design of your instruction. So it is important for us to really know when it's the best time to use this as I design my lesson. So not only that, we need to be familiarized with the different methods because once I have this in my stock knowledge as a teacher, I could this time be able to align them and sequence them appropriately into learning events. And that is basically the reason why we are reviewing this. So if I'm going to list down all of these activities from the perspective of the teacher as well as from the perspective of students, this is how it looks like. So let me now share with you one example, let's say from the College of Science in a genetics class. So look at how several episodes are set in order that when we reach episode 5, we'll be able to achieve the learning intent. So the learning episodes that you are able to see here, in fact, are helping one another to be able to achieve your learning intent. So let's try to analyze episode 1. So here, students listen to a pre-laboratory lecture on let's say, ABO blood types in humans and watch a video on the process of blood typing. So this could be a live or a pre-recorded online lecture in Panopto and a discussion forum. In episode 2, students conduct a survey in their family through their family members. Well, a tree generation. So look at how real life and realistic the second episodes. So you can actually have a survey within your family members. You can do this in Google form if you want it online. In episode 3, look at how students will prepare a pedigree analysis chart on the inheritance of ABO blood types or of the family they survey. So this time, look at the strategy that we employ. It's a data analysis, but the tool that we use could be a Google slide or an infographic tool that the student will use. In episode 4, students solve problem sets on the inheritance of ABO blood types. And in episode 5, you will see that students will apply it in a bigger scale in the entire class to show population genetics. So that is actually how lessons are in fact being set. So if we will now look at agricultural science course, it is somehow um, almost the same. So here you are looking at students conduct research, let's say, and literature survey of the management and practices of incubating poultry eggs. So I'm just using something that is generic. And here you will see students write an extended essay on the ways of selecting hatching eggs. Episode 3 would talk about maybe an online exam to test their conceptual knowledge. And then you have episode 4, wherein they will simulate the operation of the egg incubator, especially if there's pandemic, for example, and we cannot actually do that. And the last year, episode 5, they will do field exposure on the management of the practices and apply it in their own poultry setup. And you can see here that there are various learning episodes that making sure that the learning intent would be achieved. So that is what we mean by seeing to it that there is that constructive alignment. So if I'm going to now plot this in this table, the one that I've shown you a while ago, we can further enrich this learning episode. Let me now plot our original objective. So if I'm going to plot this on this table, it is a procedural knowledge and it is in the remember stage. If I will really move it towards a higher level of order thinking skills, um, I could probably improve on this further, okay, in the HOTS, in higher order thinking skills, and put it further into the evaluate, showing that students could study two principles of poultry eggs and make a written report under judgment. So you can see you can have variations in terms of your episodes, but make sure you do it right and be guided with some of the frameworks that are already existing. And the last here is the constructive alignment in terms of the assessment method. So it is important as well to know something about this because we want to know how learning really has happened. So here I'm sharing with you the three types of assessment methods: assessment of learning, assessment for learning, and assessment as learning. This is just in passing, but it is important for us to know the dynamic interaction of this in the lesson. So we're looking at here assessment of learning as something that is high stakes for us. So inside our LMS, there are common examples that we can actually make use of when it comes to using our, let's say, summative assessment. And there are also those that we can actually make use of if this is something that is a formative in nature. So what is important here, of course, the rest of our training programs in succeeding days will focus on different types of assessment, both the traditional and the alternative assessment. What I want to emphasize is that evaluation procedures must match the learning objectives all the time. So an important test for any objective is to ask the question, is there an implied is it implied in the objective a reasonable means for me to evaluate students if they have learned what was taught? So let me share with you, how do we do this? How do we determine the evaluation strategy that is needed once we already know the objective? So I'm going to show you here an example of a certain objective. Students will apply the principles of long division to the solution of word problems. So one way of determining the right evaluation strategy to use is that you write the evaluation methods into the objective. So this could be something we write in our lesson plan, in our course plan, but at the back of the teacher's mind, this is actually what we mean. So I'm using the teacher's backend. Students will be able to apply the principles of long division to the solution of word problems as evidenced by their ability to solve. So this time, I already know that my evaluation strategy is a problem solving exercise. And I need to put in some level of criterion level of performance so that I'll know engage whether I will move on to the next lesson or not. So 3 out of 5 word problems correctly. So here, not only that, I could be certain of the evaluation strategy that I'm used, but as well as as I've mentioned, the degree of the level of performance my students are able to show. So here's a second one that I want to share with you. Students analyze the causes of the Civil War. So in the back end, at the back of my mind, if I'm going to decide what evaluation strategy should I use, this is how it looks like. Students analyze the causes of the Civil War as evidenced by their solutions to problems in a simulated activity. So that is my evaluation strategy, and that should be part of my learning episodes. So here's the third one. As part of our exercise, given a series of musical scales, students will perform the exercise on the piano. On the back end, the mind of a music teacher, this is what we mean. Um, Given a series of musical scales, 90% of students in my class will perform the exercise on the piano, which means that it is a performance task that I would want to do with 100% accuracy. So that's actually our código in terms of determining what specific evaluation strategies should we do, because it is already being given as a clue in our objectives. So let me share another slide that there are existing ones that are being given as a guide. So if we have the Bloom's taxonomy here, there are online assessment methods that could actually guide us. Another one that I want to share with you is that this particular infographic, it's a pie chart showing us that there are different educational objectives. You will see the learning outcomes in the blue circle. And in the on the outer part of the circle, you will see already the assessment strategies that are suggested. So in the same way, if we are into the affective domain, so look at the outer end of the circle, the red one showing, oh, well, these are the assessment forms, assessment strategies that you can already apply to um, your instructional episodes or in your assessment methods or assessment design. And the last, if it's in the psychomotor, in the outer end of the circle, and if you skills is it the one that you would assess, then these are the different types. So in other words, there are guides along the way. There are what we call visualizations of educational domain, and we call this our taxonomy circles. Okay, and I want to highlight this that in the future, if our learning management systems have also able to implement personalized learning. It is actually not the teacher who will do this manually, but it's actually machine learning that will in fact determine what assessment strategies to be used for a particular student. Let's say you have a mixed set of students who are fast learner and slow learners. All you have to do is prepare variations of your lessons, and so it is actually the system that will actually able to present different scenarios to your students. And last here in this particular aspect of my talk is the ultimate goal is interpretability. So knowing that there is a test score that is able to guide us when we implement formative assessment or summative evaluation, it needs for us to be knowledgeable or informed so that we know what to do next. So for example, here, if formative assessment test result is satisfactory, then we need to proceed. If formative assessment test result is not satisfactory, then we need to reteach. So something that, again, should guide us when we design instruction. And so what binds these three types of assessment, as well as the ones that I've talked about in the constructive alignment, you will see that any of the learning episodes are just simply divided into the intro of your lesson, the teach part of your lesson, and the closure of your lesson. So, so here, you will see that, so in this particular example, as I've mentioned, you have the intro to your lesson, the teach to your lesson, and the closure of your lesson. And here you'll also able to see the different types of assessment that are embedded in your learning design. The Gagne um, 9 steps of instructional design and the Hunter's ITIP model are both what we call teacher-centric model, while the BIBs are what we call our student-centric design. So whatever it is that would actually guide in the sequencing is actually able to provide you with that structure. And there are a lot more that we have studied in the past. So let me now just finish this because of the lack of time. So just a review of 5 more slides. So you will see here that we have different way of structuring our lessons. So it's standard is that we have the learning objectives. It could be one screen. It could be what do you call this, a statement. And then you have the introduction, could be a screen as well, could be just an entry in your Blackboard. It could also be the content itself, the learning episodes, and the assessments are embedded in about 4 to 25 screen slide or just a written document, and you have a summary. That is what we expect to see in a lesson. And so knowing this now in your um, in the in Blackboard, for example, this is how it looks like. It is important for you to give the learning objectives, at least to give your students a head start of what lies ahead. And then you also have the introduction, why it is meaningful for learn to learn this lesson. And then next, you'll have series of number of lessons. These are your learning episodes and your assessments. It is in combination of media elements. And the last is why, what have they learned and why it is relevant to their lives. So that's basically what the lesson architecture must be able to guide us in terms of us able to be prepared in teaching online. I want to just segue, introduce the next topic that is under Sir Shane's lesson, and that is the last C that I wanna share with you, and that is consider the practical sense. We call that the context. So we've shared the pedagogy wheel before. We've shared this with you, but I want to share that as well, that it's not just about the apps that are important, but it's about pedagogy. Um, Here we've talked about at the start of my slide showing we have 3 important domain expertise that we need to develop. But look at the line, the dotted line around that infographic. We're talking of the context. So knowing that each student, each teacher, each classroom is different. Therefore, the dotted line around that framework talks about that context. And this is what we mean by applying it in a practical sense. So it takes into account our context because we are what we call unique in terms of our experiences. And so that is the topic that the topic that Sir Shane would focus, and then the next parallel sessions will talk about. And so I would want to end with this, that planning is the most important strategy for assuring better online teaching. It wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. Noah planned ahead, and so must online teachers. So good afternoon po sa inyong lahat. And thank you for your attentive listening.
Thank you very much, Ramos, for sharing means of rethinking our teaching and learning approaches with lesson design architecture through constructive alignment of learning intent, learning episodes, and assessment methods. So again, all questions will be addressed accordingly during the open forum and the Q&A portion. To our colleagues redirected to the YouTube Live, you may also post your comments and questions at the comment sections there. So again, when typing in your question for both platforms here in Zoom meeting and YouTube Live for this topic, please indicate for speaker Ramos and then your question. Okay, so at this point, we now move on to the next speaker for this afternoon from the Training Management Team Leader of the UST Educational Technology Center. May we now call on Mr. Shane Alexander Y. Lao, LPT, MA. Sir Shane?
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you see me?
I am not
Can you
yet,
see
sir.
my screen?
Yes, sir. We can now see you.
Okay, so once again, good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to talk about redesigning learning opportunities based on immediacy and bandwidth. So let me again introduce myself. I have a very long name. Just call me Shane for short. I'm a teacher in the senior high school. I'm handling grade 12 UM subjects. And apart from that, I'm also the team leader for training at the UST EdTech Center. So before I begin with my session this afternoon, I would just like to greet everyone a happy new year. We're about to start the second semester. I hope we're all well rested and ready for the challenges of this coming term. But before we talk about our plans to redesign our approach for the coming term, I would just like to uh, get to know how your first term went. So sa Tagalog or sa Filipino, kumusta po ba ang naging first term ninyo? Okay, so what I would like you to do is go to menti.com and then type the code 1922163. So again, you'll see the code on top of the screen. So let me just drag my Zoom toolbar. So again, it's menti.com and then type the code 1922163. So instead of getting hundreds of responses, I tried to categorize these into three major statements. So ano po ba yung pinaka-swak or pinaka mag-encapsulate ng inyong first term experience? So yung una, everything that I imagined for my online classes went according to plan. Second statement, it's a hit or miss thing, to be honest. And the third statement, this was the hardest semester for me teaching wise. Okay, so far I have 60 respondents. So we are 1,000 here inside the Zoom session, and we also have hundreds in YouTube. So for those who are in YouTube, you may comment uh, your response. We will take note of it. Thank you very much. So let's just wait for a few more seconds. So now I have 175. And if you want to share, if you want to give specific reasons why it's a hit or miss, or everything went smoothly, or why this was the hardest term for you, please share it in the comment section or in the chat section. So we will go through the chat section while we wait for the responses of the others. So let me just read some. So again, it's 1922163. So if you want to share, if you want to let us know what happened, why this was the hardest term for you, or why it's a hit or miss thing, so let us know. Okay, so this will be a part of our discussion. So we're going to make this as light as possible. So I know that some of you are still in vacation mode, so I don't want to spoil your remaining days while you're resting. So let's make the session short and sweet. Okay, so now I have 300 plus respondents, and majority of you chose the second statement, which is it's a hit or miss thing, to be honest. Okay, so for example, we have Sir Ray Francis here. So he mentioned that while I was adept with the technology, there are still some unforeseen scenarios, especially psychologically, when it comes to the students during the pandemic. Yeah, so it's one of the challenges that we need to overcome. You know? We have Sir Enrique. So it's the hardest, Sir Shane, because you are used to face, particularly in PE. Uh, yes, I understand where you're coming from, sir. In fact, I have friends who are PE teachers in the senior high school. They had to ask their students to create video recordings of them doing some uh, I think it's for badminton, and students had to make use of any uh, household item that they have in replacement of the badminton racket. So they had to use frying pans, fly swatters. No, it's actually very funny and interesting, but we have to make the most of what we have. So we have to adjust and we have to find ways on how to make this work, not just for us, but for our students as well. So we have Ma'am Doray from AB. So it's really varying because sometimes it works, but for others it doesn't. So we're going to try to resolve these issues, and we hope that we could provide solutions to help you better prepare for the coming semester. So I would like to thank all of the participants. So now we're close to 380. Maybe some of them don't have their devices near them. That's why they can't participate. So for those who answered, thank you very much for all of your sharing. So let me go back to uh, my slide. So this session will focus on teaching you how you can maximize the different activities and strategies that you have in your arsenal. Okay, so for this session, we're going to first distinguish the differences between the four zones of Daniel Stanford's bandwidth immediacy matrix. So this was the colorful table shown by Ma'am Ramos earlier, and I'm going to focus on that particular matrix. Okay, next, we're going to analyze how each zone in the matrix can be maximized in creating meaningful learning experiences during the EVM. So each quadrant of that matrix has a specific purpose. They have their own strengths and weaknesses or pros and cons. So we will go through that one by one. And finally, we hope that by the end of this, we'll be able to design synchronous and asynchronous activities with bandwidth and immediacy taken into consideration. Okay, so as mentioned by Ma'am Ramos earlier and by our speakers during the last session and even during the first term, this is not entirely new to us, right? We've been doing this for a long time, just have to do it fully online. And I'm sure that whenever you create technology-rich lessons, you have your go-to apps or go-to strategies with you. So I would like to know, what are those? So what are your go-to activities and strategies when you conduct your synchronous and asynchronous classes during the last semester? So let me go back to Mentimeter, and you're going to use the same code. So again, what were your go-to learning activities and strategies for your synchronous and asynchronous sessions last term? So for example, when you have to conduct face-to-face sessions with your students virtually, what are some of your most utilized learning activities or strategies? Or whenever you conduct synchronous or asynchronous sessions, rather, what type of activities do you provide for your students? So of course, recitation is always one of the most common things that we do, especially during the live virtual sessions. We have the wheel of names recitation. I actually use that as well. What else? We have recorded videos, video lessons. You have polls. You have group activities, problem sets. We also have Kahoot. Okay. We also have discussion board. Can you see the results in real time? Can someone confirm from the chat if you can
Yes,
see
sir.
the results in real time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very
Yes,
much po.
sir.
So as you can see, no, parami ng parami. So we're now 107, and the top answers, we have recorded videos, YouTube, discussion board, Kahoot, problem sets, group activities, uh, online quizzes. We also have those. So you may use different words, but we all know that it's just the same thing. No, so if we're going to look at this, although some of the words are very small now, most likely we have a common set of tools or a common set of strategies that we use whenever we conduct the synchronous and asynchronous sessions. But as teachers who are now challenged, to teach in this kind of environment wherein we need to rely on technology to make things work, and we don't have face-to-face interaction with our students, we really need to make the most of the available resources that we have to create meaningful learning experiences. So it's important for us to diversify and to, introduce different types of learning activities that can be accessed by students whether or not they have an internet connection or not. So let me go back to my presentation. So again, thank you very much for your participation. So allow me to introduce Daniel Stanford's bandwidth immediacy matrix. So this table was designed to help teachers identify and categorize tools and strategies based on immediacy and bandwidth. So with this matrix, teachers will be given the opportunity to diversify and balance their approaches based on the circumstances in the current setup of educational delivery. So let me ask this question to you, my dear colleagues. So whether you experienced this when you were still a student, or you are the reason behind this experience if you're a parent. So tatagalogin ko para mas masaya. Sino po dito mag-raise hands na lang sa ating chat? Sino po sa inyo yung mga naka-experience nung araw-araw pare-pareho ang inuulam sa cafeteria, or araw-araw pare-pareho ang baon? Yung parang pagbukas mo ng baonan mo, hindi ka na na-surprise, dalawang hotdog lang ang laman, o kaya corned beef lang ang laman, no? O kaya halimbawa, sino ang mga magulang na ganoon din ang ginawa sa kanyang mga anak, araw-araw pare-pareho ang baon, no? Araw-araw puro chicken nuggets, araw-araw puro hotdog. So if you can relate to what I'm saying, please press the raise hand button. Is it made available to you? Okay, so parang hindi ata available, pero sa chat nagre-reply naman kayo, no? So I'm sure you understand this scenario. So tayo as teachers, we also need to do the same thing when it comes to conducting our synchronous and asynchronous classes. There should always be variety, no? Hindi pwedeng araw-araw maling, 'di ba? Same thing with our online classes. It's not always discussion boards. Yes, it's a great tool, don't get me wrong, but we have to repackage and we have to think of other ways wherein we could create meaningful learning opportunities while using other tools, again, with immediacy and bandwidth into serious consideration. Okay, so again, thank you very much for your responses. So allow me to move to my next slide. So let's first understand what bandwidth and immediacy mean. So with bandwidth, it refers to the amount of data or volume of information that can be transferred from one point to the other within a network in a measured amount of time. So to put it simply, for example, you're sending a message to your friends via Facebook Messenger. If you're just sending plain text, it's easy for them to receive it and they would be able to reply almost immediately. But if you're going to attach a picture, let's say you want to share a funny meme you saw on Facebook, or if you want to share a video or an audio recording of what happened in your environment, it's gonna take time because number one, you need to upload it first before it gets sent to your colleagues, and then they would also need some time to download and to access these files. Okay, so bandwidth, again, it refers to the amount of data or volume of information. Immediacy, on the other hand, it refers to how quickly the students can respond when interacting with us or with each other. So it's either they can reply very fast, or they can be given a very relaxed space to accomplish a certain task or reply to a particular type of interaction that you initiated in your classroom. So this is a blank matrix. So let's identify the four quadrants as Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. Okay, so let's start with Q1. So with Q1, let's call this old but gold. So for Q1, we have activities that can be done with low bandwidth and low immediacy. So some would say that this could be the most boring or the least exciting among the four quadrants because it requires low bandwidth and low immediacy. But to be honest, it's the most stable and it can be a solid foundation for your online courses. So think of it this way. Imagine a Blackboard course site. So for some of us, we're about to create our course sites or put some content for the coming semester. If you're going to just place a bunch of PDF files, you have your worksheets printed or saved there, you have your readings, you have plotted your discussion board forum every week, you have your check-up quizzes, you don't need to use audio and video, but your core site will work properly. The students would be able to access all of the content in real time without encountering any issues at all. So old but gold, di ba? So again, very classic approach. It may be the least exciting, pero it's a stable foundation. It's a good start. And one good thing with the activities or approaches that you can place in this quadrant is that some of the materials can be accessed offline and they can also print it and do it by hand. So for example, you want to upload graphic organizers for your particular topic. Let's say, for example, the student doesn't have internet connection, or let's say their laptops got broke, so nasira. What they can do, they could ask their colleagues to send the PDF file on their Facebook Messenger, kunwari, and then they can just download it, print it, write on it, and then if they can submit it to you, they can just either scan it or take a photo and send it to you by email. Diba? So, old but gold. So, maganda siyang panimula whenever we have online courses. But of course, again, we want to offer variety. So, I know that I believe this was discussed yesterday and even during the previous term. We conducted a survey for the students and we were able to identify their technological limitations. So based on the results, a majority of them naman have their phones, a majority have laptops, most have internet connections, although it's not stable all the time. So we can go beyond old but gold. So let me introduce now the second quadrant, which is the chill spot. So the chill spot, these are activities which you can do that may require low bandwidth but high in immediacy. So here, it's now possible to interact with your colleagues or with your students, and they can do this with each other in real time or with a slight latency. No, so what they can do here is they can collaborate using different tools which would allow them to work together in one single file. So we also have that in our resources. So if you're familiar with G Suite and Office 365, diba? So they can all log in one Google Doc or in one Google slide. They can all work together in that same file. So for the chill spot, there's no need for audio and video resources. Everything can be done simply by text, and there's a high response rate. So what I mean is they can respond to each other's queries in real time. So again, teachers who wish to maximize the tools in this zone can use collaborative apps. So what we have, the most basic and the most stable, so we have G Suite and Office 365. They can also use chat messaging. So for example, they can use Zoom, but instead of enabling their audio and video, they can just use the chat. Or if you're familiar with Discord, I think that's one of the popular apps that they're using right now. So they can do chat messaging as a way to interact with their peers in real time without requiring too much bandwidth. Okay, so the third zone, the yellow zone on the upper left, let's call this parang Netflix lang. So in this zone, the activities or the tools that you're going to use will require low immediacy but high in bandwidth. Okay, so bakit siya parang Netflix lang? So I'm sure that during the break, most of you uh, watched a lot of Netflix shows to catch up. So if you're watching Alice in Borderland o kaya The Queen's Gambit, then you know what I mean, di ba? So when we watch Netflix, it's a chill moment for us. We just play everything, but we know that whenever we play Netflix videos or shows on Netflix, as much as possible, there should be no other online activity to make sure that we go uninterrupted whenever we watch our shows. So for quadrant three, this is now the zone wherein we can provide content with audio and video, but there's no need for real-time response or real-time interaction. So here, whenever you conduct or whenever you record your lessons, or when you share YouTube videos or you share podcasts, they all belong in this zone. So let's also consider the yellow zone as an upgraded version of the green zone. So here, um, everything can be accessed by the students because there's low immediacy required. But in order for them to fully appreciate the resources that we have, they need to have a higher bandwidth. So most likely, they should have a more stable internet connection, o kaya their devices are at least upgraded to something that's more modern, mga 1 to 2 years old siguro. So if they have those types of devices and if they have a stable internet connection, not necessarily the most expensive internet connection, no? As long as it's stable, then this will be workable for them. So here, if you want to develop learning materials, um, it would be a requirement for you, no, to have at least a basic understanding of video making and editing tools. So some of you may now think of, hala, parang ang hirap naman ng mga kailangan kong gawin sa yellow zone. Kasi apart from teaching, I need to study video making and editing pa. But there are helpful tools and resources which you can use. And we also have that in our arsenal. No? So um, I'm sure you'll be able to find all of these helpful resources. And again, we also have support offices that can help you with this. And trust me, once you master this practice, it will be worth it. Why? Because these resources can be used multiple times. So for example, if you're teaching, let's say a language course, which can be how should I say this, which is offered every term. You can just create one video lecture and then use it every term. You may want to update it anytime. Let's say if you have new examples or if you have better strategies, then you can update it. But as long as it's good, you can reuse it every term. Diba? So dito, you might need to expel some energy in creating the material, pero sulit siya. It's worth the effort. And finally, we have the fourth quadrant, which requires high immediacy and high bandwidth. So let's call this handa na ba kayo zone. So why do we call this handa na ba kayo? Because of course, if you want to conduct live sessions, it's again gonna cost a lot. Diba? So we have to make sure that we have a stable internet connection. We have a device that can run the software. It can meet our needs in real time. So it's gonna cost a lot, no, for the teachers and the students. But what's the trade-off? Ano naman nang makukuha natin sa huli? Of course, this could be the closest thing that we can have at the moment, no, in lieu of the face-to-face sessions. Um, Here as well, interaction is done in real time. So yung human touch, kahit pa paano, makikita mo siya doon. So for example, when you conduct your synchronous sessions and your webcam is on, diba? They can see you, they can see your gestures, your facial expressions. They would know kung alin yung binibigyan mo ng importance when you're discussing a concept. Diba? You can also joke around. And then when you see your students, you'll also see their reactions. And then you can gauge if you're doing the right thing or if you can adjust your strategy to fit them better sa duration ng learning session natin. Okay? So, wag naman kayong matakot na porket nandun tayo sa quadrant 4, imposible na siya. No, it's actually doable naman siya. For example, what we're doing right now, we're now in quadrant 4, yung ating session. Diba? So, real time ang ating mga interaction tsaka yung mga responses ninyo. Now, ito po yung matrix ni Daniel Stanford. So as you can see, he was able to plot different online activities into the 4 zones. So kahit pa paano, he was able to diversify and make sure that every zone is well represented. No? So for example, in the green zone, again, low immediacy, low bandwidth. So we have their readings with text and images, email, and then we also have the discussion board with text and images. So if you're going to use the Blackboard Learning Management System and all of its features, even if you don't attach video files or if you don't use other edtech resources, it falls under this zone. No? So again, old but gold. It may be the simplest, but it can stand on its own. It can deliver good results. For the blue zone, so again, we have the collaborative documents, and then we have group chat and messaging. But of course, in the blue zone, to maintain its low bandwidth requirements, so there's no audio and video. So they just rely on text chat to provide real-time interaction. Sa third zone, sa yellow, dun sa upper left sa inyong screen, so these are the materials that are recorded, no? So either audio and video siya. And these are not delivered in real time. Kaya siya asynchronous, 'di ba? So what we usually do is we upload our recorded videos and recorded lectures or podcasts, and then we give them enough time to access all of these. And finally, we have the red zone. So high bandwidth, high immediacy. So we have live video conferences, or we also have audio conferences wherein it's required to have good devices, and we're also connected in real time with hopes that the internet connection won't betray us. No? But wait, there's more. So hindi lang po doon natatapos ang ating discussion. Because apart from showing you Daniel Stanford's matrix, I decided to share something, no, to inspire everyone this second semester. So here, I was able to plot the different teaching strategies and methods for synchronous and asynchronous sessions. So, ang ginawa ko po, with Daniel Stanford's matrix in mind, nagplot ako ng mga iba't ibang strategies which you can use that will fit the requirements of each zone. So, for example, doon sa green ulit, sa old but gold, sa low immediacy, low bandwidth, you don't need a regular internet connection, right? And then you don't need to interact with your peers in real time. So pwedeng independent study o kaya halimbawa pwedeng i-maximize yung period ng asynchronous session. So we give them enough time to accomplish the task. So here we have the journal critique, literature review, discussion board, journal writing, or graphic organizers. So for example, journal critique. So what they can do is they download the PDF file from Blackboard. They can either print it or save it on their phones or their tablets or their PCs, read it while they're offline. create the report while they're offline, and then just go online when they need to upload the file. Okay? With discussion board, ganun din naman. They don't need to access videos. They just need to reply via text. Diba? They just need to type their responses and then that's it. So it doesn't require much. For high immediacy, low bandwidth, in the blue zone naman, so we have brainstorming, we have group projects. So let's say, for example, they were tasked to create a report using Google Docs. So they can all log in at the same time. No need to do video chat. They can just chat inside the chat section of Google Docs, and they'll be able to communicate with each other, share ideas, and hopefully finish the project in time. Diba? Sa yellow zone naman, again, ito na yung mga recorded videos and recorded audio. So kunwari, let's assume that may medyo mag-relax na no yung restrictions. So halimbawa yung mga subjects na merong lab. So of course we don't want the students to conduct the lab experiments at home. We need to make sure that they're in a safe environment. But considering what's happening right now, syempre medyo malabo mangyari yun. So maybe what could happen is the teachers, no, so kunwari they can now go to UST, maximize our laboratories, and then once you're in that lab, pag-set up ka ng camera, you conduct the experiment, di ba? And then papanoorin na lang yun ng mga bata. Pwede rin case analysis. So for example, merong mga recorded videos, tapos yun ang pagbabasihan nila na kanilang analysis. Demonstrations, pwede rin. So for example, nagde-demo ka kung paano magluto. Kunwari, paano sa ating mga colleagues from CTHM. O kaya halimbawa, paano mag-set up ng table. No? So, pwedeng i-demonstrate mo na lang siya, i-record mo siya, tapos papanoorin ng mga bata. Sa red zone, ito na again, high bandwidth, high immediacy. Kailangan parang natural lang yung interaction. So we have panel interviews wherein questions and answers can be exchanged in real time. Research defense, di ba, na parang on-the-spot questioning, on-the-spot na mag-provide ng answer. Debates, teaching demonstration for our peers in the College of Education. So imagine if they're conducting a teaching demonstration, tapos online din yung setup, so they have everything they need. No? So apart from this table, I also have another one. What are the different assessment strategies that you can do? So, kung halimbawang meron kang ginawang pa-activity, ano magandang assessment strategy naman ang pasok or ang aligned sa matrix ni Daniel Stanford? So as you can see, I have here the list. So similar lang ulit, no? Sa green zone, lahat ng mga hindi nangangailangan ng masyadong bandwidth. So usually mga paper submissions lang yan, which they can all do offline. And then for the blue zone, again, collaboration is key. So kinakailangan na there's interaction between the students. So we have the think, pair, share. So for example, you want to introduce a new lesson and you gave them time to sort things out on their own before you provide your in-depth discussion. They can do think, pair, share, and it's under the blue zone. O kaya halimbawa, peer instruction. No? So magpa-partner tayo halimbawa ng isang high-performing saka ng medyo isang nahihirapan. You can both assess, no? Or you can assess both of their performances or their level of understanding sa concept. And then for the yellow zones, again, video. So we have like vlogs, video reflection, or podcasts. And again, for high bandwidth, high immediacy, it could be as complex as a live demonstration or a research defense, o kaya as basic as hand signals. So very simple. You just ask your students, or do you understand? They can just use their hands to say, yes, no, we're still figuring things out. Diba? Napaka-simple. Pero it requires high bandwidth and high immediacy. Next, I have here the different tools provided in the university through the UST Cloud Campus. So all of these apps or these tools are available in your arsenal. You just need to use your UST Cloud Campus account to access all of these. No? So we're very fortunate because we have these tools, and if you use it wisely, you'll be able to provide a variety of learning experiences for your students. So as you can see, again, sa lower left, we have the most basic tools that most of us know already. We just need to be creative in designing the learning activities. For the blue zone, so you need to go online by logging in to in your G Suite accounts or in your Office 365 accounts to maximize the services. In the yellow zone, we have Panopto. We just had our training last semester. For those who are not able to attend, don't worry. We're going to repeat this for this term. We're also going to provide an advanced level training for those who wish to maximize the use of the software. And finally, we have the red zone. So we have Zoom, we have MS Teams, and we have Google Meet. No, so we had to say goodbye to Blackboard Collaborate, but we still have these three. And Zoom was the most requested web conferencing app. So ito na siya. It's given to us. No? So we need to maximize all of these resources if we want to conduct high bandwidth, high immediacy lessons. And finally, I have here another matrix, but this time I plotted the different tools and features inside the Blackboard Learning Management System. So as mentioned earlier, you don't need to really maximize the other tools. No, it's available for you. We encourage you to use it, but if you don't want to, if you want to stick to Blackboard, then by all means, okay lang. Pero if you're going to use Blackboard, might as well explore the other tools to make sure that you provide variety whenever you create your learning experiences. So let's take a closer look at this table. No? Sa green zone, again, very basic. Pag-upload ng content, pag-gawa ng discussion board question, o kaya you ask your students to create their journals or blogs or wikis. You can conduct your tests, whether with Respondus Lockdown browser or wala. You can create your learning module inside Blackboard wherein you can create several chapters na naka-chunk yung mga lessons. There's also self-assessment. We have the content market too. So for example, if you're using books by international publishers, they have their contents available, di ba? Naka-integrate sa loob ng Blackboard. So for example, we have Wiley, McGraw, Pearson, I think. So it's all integrated inside Blackboard. And of course, we have submissions with Safe Assign. Now, for the blue zone, again, it requires high immediacy. So there's collaboration that's happening between the students. So of course, let's not forget the groups tool. And if you created the groups, they can also maximize the discussion board, the blogs, the wikis, the journals, even the file exchange. You can also conduct peer assessment. They can also use G Suite apps like Google Docs, Google Sheets, Slides, and then they just share the link inside the Blackboard Learning Management System. Or they can also do group submissions via Safe Assign. Diba sa create assignment sa submission, there's an option for individual submission and group submission. Yun lang po yun. For the yellow zone naman, so here, we can create a web link to video resources. So let's say, for example, you're still in the process of building your confidence to create your videos. You can link videos from YouTube or TED, pwede naman. Or you can also use Panopto. So with Panopto, you can now create your lessons, record them, and then share the link online. Just integrate it inside the Blackboard Learning Management System. We also have here the media-rich resources by Wiley, Pearson, McGraw, Cengage, and the Panopto quiz, which will be discussed in the advanced training of Panopto. So here you have the videos, and then you can insert formative assessments in the video itself. So think of it as Dora the Explorer. Di ba si Dora merong mga ganun na meron siyang moment na magpo-post siya tapos meron siyang tanong kasi ikaw naman sagutin mo naman siya. So ganun din yung mangyayari sa Panopto quiz. No? So you can insert an assessment in the middle of the video. And finally, for the red zone, so again, high bandwidth, high immediacy, just link all of our web conferencing tools inside the learning management system. So like Zoom, Gmeet, MS Teams, the Panopto live stream, or if you want to conduct your major exams, you can conduct tests with the lockdown browser and monitor. Okay, so what are the takeaways for this afternoon's very short session? So allow me first to remind everyone of this guiding principle. No? So the university shall implement a mode of instruction rooted in the principles of communion and encounter that promotes dialogue and ensures accessibility and flexibility in learning. So aside from this, I'm also going to share with you the seal. I'm sure this was discussed several times already, and as Tomasian educators, dapat malinaw na sa atin kung ano ang seal na ito. So what I'm trying to say is if you want these to be the traits no of our Tomasian graduates, dapat tayo as teachers, ito rin ay ini-imbibe natin lahat. So with that, I would like to share the takeaways for this afternoon session. So number one, identify first the technological limitations of the students. Diba? So maganda that before we start our SEM, we know their limitations, and then with these results, we can now plot our learning activities and the learning experiences. No? Baka mamaya kasi ang nangyari, we want to create activities in the yellow and red zone. Unfortunately, hindi pala kaya ng mga estudyante. So, sayang effort natin. No? But if we know their limitations, then we can use that to plot the activities wisely. Second, start with a low bandwidth, low immediacy plan. So again, old but gold, no? It may be the least exciting, pero it's the most stable. It can provide a solid foundation for your course. So as long as you have this, okay na. But then again, di ba, we want to offer variety. Pero kung puro low bandwidth, low immediacy yung mga laman ng course site mo, it can stand on its own, kaya niya ma-survive ang semester. Third, focus on learner-centered experiences. So for some of us, maybe what they did last term was really maximize the synchronous sessions by conducting 2-hour, 3-hour lectures. No? So anong ending? Pagod na pagod tayong mga teachers. So why not share the responsibility or give the responsibility to the students? Bakit hindi na tayo maging mga facilitators on the side, 'di ba? Let them build their own knowledge, no? Let them explore new things. So again, para mangyari to, kailangan lang natin ng mag-isip ng ibang strategies para ma-present sa kanila yung content at para mag-facilitate yung kanilang learning. 'Di ba? And of course, we encourage kasi 'di ba, participation as much as possible. Kapag halimbawa nag-lecture tayo for 2 hours, wala, nakatingin lang sila sa iyo for 2 hours. Sayang naman. 'Di ba? Sayang yung in-internet nila. So might as well give them something worthwhile to do. Next, when designing activities, don't forget to take time, bulk, level of difficulty, and alignment into careful consideration. No? So we need to take these factors into talagang serious consideration. For example, the time. We want to, again, respect din yung oras ng mga estudyante. They also have other things to do. They also have house chores to attend to. Diba? And again, the pressure of the pandemic, it might take a toll on them. So let's think of ways, let's think of activities that can be meaningful pero it won't need a lot of time, no, to accomplish. Same thing with the bulk, no. So halimbawa, meron kang assignment, nagpa-journal review ka, pero 5 journals tapos 50 pages each, and then they're just given 3 days to accomplish the task. Nako, baka naging confetti na lang yung journals, no. Sayang. So we have to consider 5 journals, 50 pages each. let's assume ilang page kaya ang kaya nilang mabasa isang araw. Tapos i-add pa natin yung iba nilang subjects, iba pa nilang ginagawa sa buhay, no? So I hope you catch my drift, no? Sa third naman yung level of difficulty ganun din. No, baka naman masyadong mabigat yung hinihingi natin. Of course, we want it to be challenging. No, we want them to go out of their comfort zones. No, pero baka naman sobrang hirap. No, so again, kailangan natin pag-isipan. Ang pinaka-importante, alignment. No? Dapat aligned yung ating mga activities, yung ating mga learning experiences sa mga ILOs na nakaset. Sayang naman yung in-effort natin kung ang ganda nga ng activity mo, di naman pala siya aligned. Diba? So, alignment is key. Next, maximize your asynchronous sessions. So, with asynchronous sessions, diba, they're given the liberty to accomplish the tasks at their own convenience. So, flexible learning. So, if we provide activities that can be accessed anytime, anywhere, diba, it would be easier for them. Next, provide support, be available, make your presence felt and known. So what I'm trying to say here is make yourselves available through email o kaya halimbawa during your synchronous sessions, 'di ba? Magpakita tayo ng approachable vibe, no? Para pwede silang mag-share na kanilang concerns, they can ask questions, 'di ba? Kasi pag halimbawang dismissive tayo o kaya nagre-reply sa email, baka sabihin niyo na sila ay naabandona na ng kanilang mga teachers. So I'm not going to discuss this further kasi I think ito ay matatouch ng ating third speaker, si Ma'am Fajardo. So siya na ang bahala para dyan. Okay? Next, explore new tools, practice, then mix and match. So Ma'am Ramos shared earlier the pedagogy wheel. I also used to share it when I handled the sessions on integrating technology in teaching and learning. So medyo pamilyar na sa lahat, di ba? Yung pedagogy wheel na yun. So let's try to explore new tools and then mix and match natin para hindi pare-parehong strategy ang ating ginagawa every day. Next, make your learning resources universally accessible and divide them into digestible and manageable chunks. So what I'm trying to say here is when you upload documents or files, make sure na ito yung readable ng devices. So halimbawa, instead of uploading a Word file, why not save it as PDF? Para hindi nagugulo yung formatting, hindi nasisira yung file. Okay? O kaya when you upload audio and video, make it short and sweet. So instead of recording a 40-minute long video, why not create 4-minute videos? Yes, it may be difficult kasi parang 10 cut yung kailangan mong gawin. Pero yung mga 4-minute videos na yon, enough na yon para mag-stick sa mga learners or sa mga viewers mo. And then, di ba, sa eduk meron tinatawag na chunking. So yun yung pag-breakdown mo ng concept into smaller parts para hindi ma-overwhelm yung mga learners. So ganoon din dapat yung ating mga resources. Okay? Next, offer flexibility and options, and leniency is key. So halimbawa, you want to introduce a new software. So let's say you want to use Adobe Spark o kaya Microsoft Sway for the group project. If it's a new tool for them, then give them time to study it, 'di ba? Wag mo silang katayin sa grade pag hindi nila na-achieve yung perfect na ini-imagine mong output kasi nga bago yung tool sa kanila. So you provide flexibility. So for example, if you want to get higher credit or use this app, o kaya halimbawa kung hindi kaya ng device mo, you may use this other program, things like that. So we give them options, 'di ba, para mag-fit doon sa preferences and doon sa kakayahan nila. And of course, with that, kailangan maging din tayo, compassionate, no? So we practice leniency. Huwag naman tayong paabuso, of course. Let's just be firm with some of the major rules. For example, yung mga submission, 'di ba? O kaya syempre yung academic honesty, no? But for other factors, kung kaya naman nating ibigay, no, maging para magkaroon ng compromise, then baka pwede naman. Next, syempre, wag natin kakalimutan, we need to provide feedback. No? So with feedback, we can help the students, we can guide them kung tama ba yung direksyon na pinatutunguhan nila. So wag tayong magpagawa ng discussion board, tapos di natin binasa, natin na-replyan, diba? So we need to provide feedback. Again, it's one way of making our presence felt and known. Next, reflect, seek help when needed, and share your triumphs to inspire other teachers. We're in a community, 'di ba? So, ito po ay hindi ito pang isang taong problema or challenge lang. So, might as well use this chance to reflect on our practice and then seek help kung natin kaya. And then, syempre, kung meron tayong mga good moments, let's share it to others, no, to inspire them and to help them hopefully get the same results. Okay, so with that, I would like to share an assignment. This would be a part of your the breakout session for Thursday and Friday. So ang mangyayari po ay ibibigay ko po sa inyo yung instructions, tsaka yung document na kailangan nyo pong gawin. Sa Thursday and Friday, magkakaroon po tayo ng breakout sessions. Ito pong gagawin yung material ang gagamitin natin sa session na yun. Okay? So, ano po ang mangyayari? Sa next slide, I'm going to share with you a QR code wherein you can download a blank copy of the bandwidth immediacy matrix. I will also share it with you later, okay? So, sa matrix na yon, you will find 2 columns sa bawat quadrant. So, yung mga zones, no? So, sa green zone, may 2 column, same sa blue, sa yellow, and sa red. 1 column, ang pangalan niya ay noteworthy practice. Below it, just write a learning activity or a strategy that worked well for you during your synchronous or asynchronous session. And then, of course, please integrate the tools that you use, no, to make it work. Sa struggles column, so syempre, ano naman yung mga challenges na na-experience nyo in relation doon sa quadrant na yon. So halimbawa, nag-upload sa yellow zone. Nag-upload kayo ng video kaso meron akong problema. Write it down and then share it with us during the breakout session. Okay? So let me change my screen. Ito po siya. Can you see the Google Docs file?
Yes, sir.
Okay po, thank you. So here's the copy. So ang mangyayari po, the link that you will get is a link that would allow you to copy this document. So you will have your own individual copy. So again, per quadrant, sa green zone, lagay natin ano yung mga naging best practice ninyo, no? Na may kinalaman doon sa mga activities associated in the green zone. Same thing with the struggles, and then sa iba't ibang quadrants, ganon din. Please take note, doon po sa my left, we have HB. So, ibig sabihin po, yung vertical, yun po yung bandwidth. Okay? And then yung horizontal, tignan nyo po doon sa lower right, merong HI. Ito po yung high immediacy. So, ibig sabihin, sa lower left corner, papunta sa right, yun po yung from low to high immediacy. And then mula sa green corner pataas, yun yung low bandwidth to high bandwidth. Sa second page, you'll also find the instructions similar to what I just read earlier. So gagawin po natin ay, again, noteworthy practice. Ano po yung strategy or activity na nag-work well para sa inyo doon sa quadrant na yun. Okay, struggles naman, ano yung mga questions nyo or concerns na kinaharap in relation to creating activities or strategies na pasok sa mga zones na ito. Okay po? So let me share now the QR code and the alternative link. You can take a photo. I-save na po natin itong ating document. So assignment po natin yan. Hopefully, mag-share po kayo sa Thursday and Friday. So we will be joined by the e-learning specialists and the scientific facilitators and the pedagogical leads. So we hope that you engage in the discussion, no? Para ma-address natin kung ano yung mga concerns, o kaya if you have the noteworthy practices, di ba? We hope that we could also inspire others to do the same. And hopefully when they try it on their own, di ba, they could also yield the same results. Okay po? So let me just send the link in the chat box so you can also access it from there. Let me just end my presentation. Let me just copy the text and then i-paste ko siya sa chat box. There you go. So with that, I would like to end my presentation with this quote. Let me just read it for you. The students of the future will demand the learning support that is appropriate for their situation and context. Nothing more, nothing less. So, sa ganitong panahon, as teachers, we need to really provide the support, no, in any way that we can. So, kung kinakailangan mag-aral, kinakailangan mag-adjust, di ba? For the benefit of our students, we must. No? So, with that, I would like to end now my presentation. Maraming salamat po. Magandang hapon sa lahat. Thank you po.
Thank you very much, Sir Shane or Mr. Lao, for imparting opportunities to contextualize our TLAs or our teaching and learning activities based on bandwidth immediacy matrix. So again, let me just remind everyone that all questions will be addressed accordingly during the open forum portion. And colleagues that are redirected to YouTube Live may also post their comments and questions to the comments section in YouTube. So when typing your questions on both platforms here in Zoom meeting and YouTube Live, for this topic, please indicate your question for Speaker Laong and then your comment and your question. So as for our last speaker for today, I hope you're still with us, okay, alive and kicking and still engaged, listening, okay, to our last speaker for today. May we please call on Assistant Professor Christine Concepcion C. Fajardo, MS, from the College of Tourism and Hospitality Management.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am Jennifer, can you hear me? Is my audio clear?
Yes, ma'am, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay, so let's have first, before I proceed with my presentation, let's have the short activity. Okay, so I'll be using Mentimeter. Let me, right, sorry. So again, good afternoon, fellow Tomasian educators. So before I proceed, let's have first a short activity. So earlier, Sir Shane asked you about your experience. Okay, so I would like to ask you also your experience in conducting your online classes. Okay, so let me share first. This Menti, can you please go to menti.com 8208-022. Wait, I'll just refresh this one. Yan. Okay, so can you please rate, dear colleagues, how was your experience in conducting online classes? So excellent, good, fair, and poor. Okay, so, right? So 34, 44. Okay. All right. Good. Okay, so right now we are 1,000 attendees. Okay. All right. So thank you. Okay, thank you. So majority has or had a good experience. 71, 72% has good experience, while 10 10% had excellent experience. Okay, so let's try to know what's the difference of this activity, or the result of this activity. Bakit kaya 11% lang yung excellent, and then 70% has good experience? Okay, but hopefully next term, everyone will have 100% excellent experience. Okay. All right. So let me share. Can you see my screen? Can you see my slide? Can you see my slide? Hello?
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
see it? All right, thank you. So my topic, the title of my topic is Teaching Presence and a Powerful Tool for Student Engagement. So these are the learning objectives: enhance the level of teaching presence, develop techniques to engage students, and strengthen our relationship and connection with students in an online environment. As educators, okay, we guide our students, reinforce key concepts, and foster student engagement. But due to the face-to-face transition from face-to-face to and reach virtual mode of instruction, we have to establish online teaching presence, because before we can see our students, we can talk to them, we can say hi, we can smile at them. So but now it's a virtual environment. Okay, so it's really important to establish online teaching presence. Establishing teaching presence means creating a learning experience for students to progress. Garrison and others contend that effective online teaching is best understood in terms of interrelationship of three types of presence: cognitive, social, and teaching presence. So cognitive presence, it's the ability of learners to construct meaning and build understanding. Social presence is the extent to which students feel connected to a real community of peers who share their goals and interests. While teaching presence is the design and facilitation of cognitive and social presence to achieve learning outcomes. Right, so our focus now is the teaching presence. Community of Inquiry Framework conceptualizes effective online learning as a result of appropriately designed and encourage interactions among the instructional content, instructors, and students. Baker broadly characterized teaching presence as the virtual visibility of an instructor in an online learning environment. So even though it's virtual, the students must feel our presence. Sometimes po, due to internet connectivity, we turn off camera. Or during a synchronous session, kailangan po madama ng ating mga estudyante ang ating presensya. So dapat nararamdaman pa rin tayo ng ating mga estudyante. Studies show that higher difficulty engagement, involvement positively impacts students' learning experience. There are three discrete elements of teaching presence, namely course design and organization, facilitating discourse, direct instruction. So how can we translate this into our teaching presence? So allow me to fly you through my e-journey and how did I establish my teaching presence. Last June, July 2020, we revised our course plans. As mentioned yesterday by Dr. June Santiago, he said the importance of a well-defined intended learning outcomes, and also the use of appropriate and engaging teaching strategies and activities, and the corresponding assessment tasks. Also, I manage and organize my course sites. Okay. After that, I uploaded the course orientation material. Then, on August 12th, I created an announcement on UST Cloud Campus, informing my students about our first synchronous class. The following day, August 13th, I conducted my course orientation where I introduced myself. And not only that, I shared with them, I shared with my students my interests, passions, approach to life, and teaching. I also shared with them my email address. Of course, class expectations were discussed, as well as the netiquette and ClassNet guidelines. Knowing the students more and up to now to know my students because it's easier to remember their names. It's easier to engage them. Okay, so I usually ask questions. And what are those? So sometimes I would ask them who is from the province, if they've been to Batanes, or if they have an Instagram account, rather, if they have an Instagram account, or if they've been to other places and the like. This way, I can know them better. Also, I conducted a survey determining the technological capacity of our students. So maybe we can also do this and follow Sir Shane's, the suggestions of Sir Shane. Okay. Then after that, comes synchronous and asynchronous sessions. So can we go back to Menti? May I ask you, dear colleagues, how do you start your online class? How do you start your online class? Let me present the next slide. All right. So how do you start your online class? Can you see ayan, prayer, thank you. Kahoot with a prayer. Kamustahan, thank you, very good. With a prayer, with a greeting and a prayer. Kamustahan, warm up activity, okay. Press enter. All right, so kamustahan with a prayer. All right, so thank you. So kamustahan, all right. Let me show again my screen. All right. So most of us will pray and ask questions. All right. So let's have a glimpse of my virtual class. So like you, I greet my students and ask them questions like, what did they take for breakfast? Did they try something new? Or kamusta sila? Or nagawa nyo ba yung assignment? Something like that. Then usually they will reply or respond in the chat box. So when they replied, I would normally call their names or mention their names. This practice would set the environment in a relaxed mode, and it makes them also feel comfortable, because when the students are comfortable with us, it means that they can then they are more comfortable learning. Okay, after that, after the kamustahan, greeting, and asking them questions, it's now my time to discuss, okay, online discussion. So for online discussion, usually it takes 1.5 hours. So tama si Sir Shane na sometimes I still have some doubts. Nakikinig ba sila? Anong ginagawa nila while I'm doing lecture? Are they interested? Something like that. So usually it will take me 1.5 hours. Okay. Well, to introduce a topic, I usually share my experiences. Well, to call their attention, I will uh, let's say I've been to this place, then I will tell them stories, and afterward I will relate it to my lesson. I also integrated some um, um, industry scenarios and situations wherein sometimes they are more interested, and also they appreciate the lesson. And not only that, not only online discussion, I also integrated some interactive games and activities. Well, I use different tools and applications like quizzes, Mentimeter, and for presentations, I utilize Microsoft's Wave. All right. So last term, I handled I handled applied business tools and with global distribution system. So I usually conduct online demonstrations. So I'll just show you a glimpse. Okay. Let's have a short demo. Okay. So let's say, can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? So let's say we would like to know what are the available flights going to Hong Kong. So let's say it's June, Manila to Hong Kong. Let's try any airlines. All right. So these are the airlines. So as you hover the mouse, you can see there the name of the airline: Cathay Pacific, Hong Kong Airlines Limited, Philippine Airlines. Then this is the time, estimated time of departure, then estimated time of arrival, the booking classes, and then the number of seats. To show you an actual booking, okay. So this is an actual booking. So I booked one passenger, Manila to Hong Kong, and then Hong Kong, Manila. Right. So that's it. So that's my online demonstration. All right, so here comes now the asynchronous. Asynchronous is devoted for collaborative learning. Of course, we assigned our class into groups. Okay, it's their time also for task execution, review of past lesson, consultation, and inquiry. So for groups, it's for collaboration, and also they would learn from other peers, from other classmates. All right. Under the course design and organization, we upload also, or we uploaded some of our group assignments and group tasks. So when we complete tasks or assignments, we must make sure that we give them clear instructions. We provide also rubrics so that they would know what is expected from them. They would know how they will be graded. It's important also to communicate deadline. Okay, students are very anxious when it terms of deadline. So we have to remind them as deadlines approach, make sure that we'll give them enough time to finish a certain task. Okay, so once we're done uploading, okay, once we click and uploaded the file, what comes next? Okay, so questions, clarifications. Okay, so how did I address this? So I made myself available, right? I made myself available. So for asynchronous class, it's devoted for answering the queries of our students, reading and checking their assignments and assessment tasks, for consultation and monitoring them, especially during examination. All right. So for a synchronous session, it's important to strengthen our communication lines. Okay. Kahit na po we gave them clear and organized instructions, meron pa rin, there will be questions, clarifications. So we must make sure that we are available to respond and address their concerns. Okay, so for timely feedback, useful and timely feedback, when I give feedback, usually I make it personalized. Okay, I would type the name of the students. Together with my course facilitators, we organized a webinar and also an online forum where we invited industry practitioners. Okay, so as of now, for this term, it's another journey for me. So on January 21, 2021, how will I enhance my teaching presence? Okay, so these are some techniques on how to enhance teaching presence. Well, sabi ni Sir Shane kanina, yung discussing for a longer period. Now, I will try now to shorten lecture sessions, but I will integrate more engaging activities and formative assessments, increase relevance and motivation in class activities. I will try to be more creative. I will give them learning activities away from the computer. Okay, like maybe fun writing, arts and crafts, or life skills. Detailed communication plan. Earlier, I read a text or a message that some students would like to contact us 24/7. Well, to add that, we can inform them the days and time frames that will be available. Of course, providing them our email address. They can also communicate with us through post, forum, or social media. Indicate also how long it will take them to get a response from us. It could be 24 or after 24 or 48 hours. But when communicating with our students, we need to add warmth, provide attention to all students. Everyone needs to have our attention. Okay, so let us also require them to have their respective photos, because this way we can associate and identify them. And lastly, we build learning communities. Let's make learning social. What does it mean? Let's say there are groups within the class. Maybe they can collaborate with other sections or with other colleges. We can also set up small groups. It means that we'll give them mentoring groups. We can also have outside class spaces wherein they can talk anything. They can discuss current trends and any common interests. We can also ask guidance or support from our college or from student organizations. So we need to build learning communities, okay? So that students also would feel na hindi sila nag-iisa. Okay, they can share their thoughts, they can share their concerns. Okay, because if they can share it, they would realize na another person is experiencing this situation. So hindi siya nag-iisa. Okay, so we need to build learning communities for them. All right. So, okay, how will you now enhance your teaching presence? So, for this academic year, so after establishing our teaching presence last term, how will we enhance our teaching presence? Wait, I'll just show again the Menti. All right. Okay, I need to be aware of the proper teaching methodologies. Okay, must be in proper get up. All right, good. Any other answers? Any other answers for enhancing your teaching presence? By employing a variety of methodologies. Be more compassionate. Yes, it's really important to be compassionate and considerate because it's a new setup for us. But now, at least, we had an experience, so we can now see how we can address the concerns of our students. But of course, they should also do their part. They should be responsible. Provide additional ways to teach my lessons aside from teaching it synchronously, all right? Knowing more my students, knowing because if we know our students, they will be more engaged. Be visible online and interact actively with students. Get feedback always. Maximize asynchronous sessions and make it engaging. Yes. I will have more time allotted to communicating with students. Okay. Smile. Very good. They need to we should be approachable, okay, so that they will be more comfortable with us. Okay. Be more considerate, more interactive activities, know how to actually listen. Yes, maybe listening and be flexible. Okay. We should ask them also when is the best way for them to learn. Okay? Sometimes during discussion, I would ask them, paano kayo nagre-review? Is it using your phone? Do you write things? Um, do you record it? Something like that. So we can ask them the best way they can learn. Being accessible in terms of communication, having good rapport. Yes, thank you for answering that. Good rapport with the students, using different but unified teaching techniques, open communication, call them by first name, yes, because they would feel that we know them. Be more open and understanding, compromise. Okay, thank you for answering. Thank you for participating in this activity. Well, I will try to download it, and I'll ask permission if I can upload this in our course site so that you can read what are the best practices of our teachers. Okay, improving immediate feedback, calling them individually. All right, thank you. Thank you po for your participation. Okay. Right. So thank you. So, all right. So, but what will remain? Okay. Yes, we have established and then we will enhance, but what will remain? Securing relative and relevant content. As I've said earlier, our content is our passion. So even though nadi-disconnect po tayo, okay, if you could hear some of the recorded sessions, naririnig ko yung sarili ko, hello, class, are you still there? Do you still hear me? Something like that. But kahit po nadi-disconnect, we have to continue our lesson. We have to share our knowledge and deliver it competently. Then giving clear and organized instructions because it will help them to accomplish the task. Okay, so even though we're not physically present, if we gave them clear instructions, they are guided. Strengthening lines of communication. Okay, strengthening lines of communication, especially during asynchronous session. And lastly, maintaining strong connection with students. Connecting with our students can help them engage with us. And if they're comfortable, they are more comfortable learning. All right. So to end my presentation, so this is just short and sweet, but to end my presentation, I would like allow me to share to you a statement from our Dean, Attorney Jessie G. Granado. This motivates and empowers us, and it reminds us to deliver world-class and top-notch and rich virtual tourism and hospitality education. Ang sabi niya po, ang lahat ay mabuti dahil lahat ay bigay ng Diyos. So for this academic term, mas lalo po nating ipadama sa ating mga estudyante kung gaano kabuti at kahusay ang mga tumasinong guro. Maraming salamat po. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mo Fajardo. Thank you for ending this training with an inspiring topic that merely our teaching presence is a powerful tool for student engagement. And likewise, if you have any question for this topic, please type in for speaker Fajardo and then your comment and comments and questions to our speaker. So in addition, may we also inform our dear colleagues that the schedule of the breakout sessions on Thursday and Friday will be announced tomorrow. So the breakout sessions will be per academic unit. So it will be announced tomorrow. So it's very important that you actually attend or you know the details of the breakout session tomorrow. Okay, so at this point, we now officially start the session's open forum. So our chat moderators transcribe all questions from the participants both on both platforms. Okay. Okay. And for the first question, we start with a question raised from Danilo Ginto Jr., addressed to our first speaker, Dom Ramos. So the question is that, hello po, considering there is no perfect course design, I would just like to ask how can we design a course that can be effectively used in a class that is composed of a very diversified set of students. Students can vary from anywhere along the spectrum of being talented, very fast learner, to do not care, want to pass, but do not want to do anything, very emotional and very slow learners. So this question goes to our first speaker, Mom Ramos.
Good afternoon po uli. Are you able to hear me po?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so thank you for your question, Sir Danilo. I've also listed my answer in a document so that later on you can go back to this. For most, we know that there are essential things that must be part of our course. So, in other words, this must be first met by all our learners. So in terms of our predefined activities. So however, we understand that there are what we call as different sets and of learners, and we encounter that every now and then. So just like what you've said, we have diversified set of students. We have fast learners. We may have, let's say, very slow learners. So in the planning stage, a teacher could actually anticipate this by designing some variations in the lesson episodes. And so you already have what we called a ready-made types of activities that would still meet your objectives, but in different variation because you want to address now the different needs of the learners, different set of learners. Though this scenario may not be, as I've mentioned, a sweet task because it would take a lot of preparation on your end. It could also be time consuming. But then it could also be what I call a rewarding experience because at the end, what you really want for students to experience and later on be a takeaway when they go out of the course and apply the learning in real life is to really teach them how to learn, to feel, and act appropriately. So, yung differentiated instruction po, magagawa natin with or without technology. However, if we have a platform and that this platform is able to support differentiated instruction, well and good because it will automate the process. Hindi yung ikaw yung magbibigay sa kanya ng, okay, I'm going to arrange students from this group is a slow learner, ito naman ay fast learner. Ito po kasi if it is embedded in what we call an adaptive learning engine inside our LMS. Ito po kasi yung mga next generation of LMS na lalabas na. So we expect our LMS to be able to be upgraded in a few updates in the coming months or in the coming years. So later on, you will realize na itong mga variation na ginawa ko, kayang-kaya kong gawin in an automated process. So ang importante lang as of now is for you to prepare those variations of activities. What is also important is that nag-usap-usap tayo sa lahat ng nagtuturo ng same subject para we still maintain that quality of instruction within the college or of course within the courses. So importante po yung nag-uusap-usap, hindi po yung kung ano yung ginagawa po ng ibang teachers. So nagkakaroon na ng comparison yung ating mga estudyante. So at the end, you still target po and maintain that constructive alignment. So even if we have this variation, we still meet the targets that we want. And later on, it is added up to the overall achievement of the university in terms of developing those graduate attributes. So if we are inside Blackboard, we can actually make use of adaptive release now in Blackboard Classic or conditional availability if it's Blackboard Ultra, because you can predefine certain set of tasks based on some of the conditions that you set. So for example po, this particular activity will not open until you be able to answer this particular test or a quiz, and that you have to pass 75% of the quiz before you open the next task. So this could already be done po in our system right now. So I hope I'm able to answer po your question.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Ramos. Okay, our next question is addressed to our second speaker, Mr. Shane Alexander Lao. So the question is, what kind of adjustments I can make when my schedule is from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.? So can I allow them to eat while having class? Sir Shane?
Good afternoon po. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. For this question po, I think this question was posted by Sir Joseph. Okay, so siguro po una po sa lahat no, I'm gonna assume na lang na meron naman sigurong break in between or dun sa 10 to 1 na session, 'di ba? Whenever we conduct 3-hour sessions sa ating mga face-to-face sessions, we usually have a health break. 'Di ba? Halimbawa, yung mga 10 minutes every hour, CR break, 'di ba? So siguro po what we can do is at the start of the term, 'di ba, we do this strategy called housekeeping wherein we discuss grading system, classroom rules, expectations. It could be a point for discussion na yung oras natin ay 10 to 1. Anong gusto nating gawin no para doon sa mga health breaks natin. So, for example, if ito po ay mangyayari sa akin, so siguro ang gagawin ko instead na 5-minute break every hour, baka gawin natin siya na 15-minute na isang bigayan, and then we place that break in between para tatama doon sa 12 to 1. Or what you can also do is pwede ka rin mag-introduce halimbawa ng isang group activity, tapos gawin nyo, o sige, working break, tapos idagdag mo yung 15 minutes mo na health break. So, para hindi rin nasasayang yung time. Of course, we want to maximize the time para doon sa pag-facilitate ng mga learning experiences. No? Pero kung halimbawa tatama sa 10 to 1 na lunch break, sa 12 to 1 na lunch break at medyo alanganin, again, flexibility is key, di ba? So, pwede naman natin itong i-introduce sa kanila, pwede natin i-share, di ba? Pero, of course, maganda rin na maaprubahan din, ipaalam din natin ito sa ating department chair, for example, no, kung amenable ba siya dun sa ganong setup. But of course, mangingibabaw din syempre yung ano natin, pagiging compassionate. No? So, we can probably make adjustments. Pero syempre, on their end din as students, meron din silang responsibility na kung nag-enroll tayo ng 10 to 1, tatamaan na lunch break natin, anong gagawin ko? So baka pwede ako mag light snacks before the class, lunch na lang after, no? So dapat meron ding effort on their end. So to make this clear, dapat parehong pag-uusapan ng teacher and ng students kung ano yung suggestions ng bawat isa, alin yung mga kondisyon na katanggap-tanggap for both parties, and then hopefully they could reach a compromise. Ayun po. So thank you po. I hope nasagot ko siya kahit paano.
Thank you very much, Sir Shane. Sir Shane, let me just also take this opportunity to clarify something regarding the assignment that you provided a while ago. Okay, so doon po ba sa assignment natin, since of course we will be doing this during the parallel breakout sessions, um, the output will be, of course, it's going to be done by per academic unit. So the output will be, it, does it, does it have to be individual or per course, or how do we go about with that? Sir? Sir, I think you're on mute.
Hello, yes, sorry po. Could you please repeat that? Medyo ano po ang aking signal.
Okay po. Sir, yun nga po, let me just take this opportunity to also clarify something regarding the assignment that we provided. So since we're going to do the matrix on the breakout parallel session, so it's going to be done per academic unit as we have also announced earlier. Will the output actually be per academic unit also, or per course, or per individual?
Per learning area po ang magiging submission po natin.
Thank you for
Opo.
that.
Opo, per learning area po.
All right, thank you. So next, okay, we now move on to the question for our third speaker, Assistant Professor Christine Concepcion C. Fajardo. So the question is, can you cite examples of outside class spaces?
All right. So for outside class spaces, let's say you will have another forum wherein they will not discuss their lessons. Okay, so they will not, let's say they will just discuss their common interests, their concerns, what else, anything under the sun. So it's not about their lessons. Okay, wherein they will forget their lessons, and it will be a new, I mean, an outlet, another outlet for them. So hindi lang puro mga lessons nila, they will take a break from that, and then um, they will discuss other things. But of course, I'm not saying na kalimutan yung mga lessons or wag mag-aral, but they need also another outlet. Okay, and if they have another outlet, if they'll take a break sometimes, then after that, when they study, they will be more recharged, and maybe they would learn also from another students. So they can cope and engage with their studies.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Fajardo. All right. So since we do not have enough time to cover all questions given by all participants, both on Zoom platform and YouTube Live, all answers to your questions today and likewise yesterday will later on be posted and shared on the faculty training site. Also, there were some questions. Will there be any handouts given, especially on the topics discussed by the speakers today and yesterday? Again, of course, all of the handouts will also be posted and uploaded on the faculty training site. You just have to wait for them. Okay, so and that's it for day 2 of teaching and innovation goals for e-learning redesign. So once again, I'm Jennifer Aguilar from the College of Fine Arts and Design. And on behalf of my partners, chat moderators Ma'am Esquadra and Ma'am Honay, the Office of the Vice Rector of Academic Affairs, Center for Innovative Teaching and Educational Delivery, and the Educational Technology Center. Thank you very much for joining us today. See you again tomorrow on our Day 3 session. And let us end this day with the singing of the UST hymn. you, everyone.